Have you ever wondered why your body seems to speak up at the most inconvenient times? Maybe it's a headache before a difficult meeting, or maybe it's that knot that you get in your stomach before you have this conversation that you really have been trying to avoid. It's that little churning that you feel when you say yes, but you really wanted to say no. Maybe it's exhaustion. No matter how much sleep you get, you just feel like it's never enough. We often think that our body is working against us, but what if it's actually trying to help us? What if it's trying to serve us? What if it's trying to talk to us and give us some feedback? What if our bodies aren't betraying us? What if they are communicating with us? This is something I love to discuss. It's really right in my wheelhouse. So let's get into it. Last month, we talked about awareness. We talked about what it means to notice. Last week, we talked about internal agreement. Today, we're going to take that one step further and we're going to go a little deeper because one of the first places that comes out of alignment is our body. Long before we like to admit it, we become overwhelmed. Long before we want to say anything and really admit that this is going on, we're already exhausted. And our bodies usually know, don't they? Our body is always gathering information. We have this beautiful mind and all the different ways that we take in information and interact with the world around us. And as a functional medicine practitioner, this is something that I see all the time. And symptoms, they're not random. I tell people all the time, I'm a super sleuth and I am looking for clues. Symptoms aren't random, they're information and they're valuable information. From where I'm sitting, this is information that I can use to figure out what's going on. It could be things like fatigue. Maybe it's digestive issues. Maybe it's muscle tension. Maybe it's headaches or insomnia, difficulty sleeping or sleeping and having unrefreshed sleep. Maybe it's a rapid heartbeat or anxiety. Those are all things that I look at as if they're clues, and they're not. I don't think that they're always problems that we need to just put a lid on and tell it to be quiet and go away. The question doesn't always have to be, well, how can I make it stop? Yes, of course, if we have a headache, that doesn't feel great and we don't want to continue with the headache. But I think the better question is, what is my body trying to tell me? I use the illustration all the time. If somebody comes to me and they've got a pain in their hand, they say that's their main complaint. I got this really terrible, sharp pain in my hand. And then I look at their hand and I say, well, that's because you've got a pencil sticking out of your hand. Not really, but follow me here. So I could say, well, let's give you some Tylenol because that'll take the pain away. Yes, that might help take the pain away, but don't you think it would be better if I take the pencil out of their hand, right? Remove it, clean up the wound, put some ointment on the wound, and then, make sure that they don't get an infection. And of course, give them something for the pain. So instead of how do I make this stop? I ask, what is the body trying to tell us? What is your body trying to tell you? Unfortunately, we live in this world where we often just continue to override and override and override all the time. Women, especially, gosh, we are just so good at ignoring these signals, right? We just, in fact, I think sometimes we pride ourselves in how much we can carry, the burdens that we bear, and how much we can do. We just push through the exhaustion. We skip meals. We ignore the stress. When I worked in the ICU, the big joke was we would go home after a 12-hour shift and say, did I eat today? Did I go to the bathroom today? And we'd talk about it and joke. And it was sort of like, well, I went all shift without eating, as if it was a badge to wear, as if it was something that we were so proud of, except that we just completely ignored what our body needs and we just overrode it all the time. And, as women, we just, like I said, we push past the stress, we push past the hunger, we keep working, we stay busy, we override all of the signals that we have coming in. We override the hunger signal, the need for sleep, and the need for rest. And I feel like one of the ones that we do a lot is we override our emotions. We just kind of keep stuffing them or putting them aside or saying, I don't have time to deal with that right now, which I get it, when we're busy and in the middle of things, totally. Like when I worked in the ICU, I could not feel everything that I felt in that moment. I had to keep doing my job. I would take my emotions and put them on the shelf. And at some point, I had to come back, take that box off the shelf and deal with it. I had to process through all that stuff. And so I feel like, as women, we just eventually, because we just ignore and we stop paying attention, we don't even recognize our own needs anymore. We don't recognize the signals that our body's giving us, that our emotions are giving us, or maybe even our thoughts are telling us. And I don't feel like that's a strength. In fact, I feel like that's more a disconnect. And it's not something that's helping us, it's actually harming us. And so realignment includes reconnecting with wisdom. It's reconnecting with the wisdom that God built into our bodies. We are fearfully and we are wonderfully made. We are created to work in a certain way and to listen as we interact with the outside world, to listen to all the information that's coming in and listen to the signals that our body is giving us. And it's our job to really pay attention. And, listening is different from being led by everything that we feel, right? We're not walking around like a cow with a little ring in its nose, being led by our emotions. That's not what I'm talking about. It doesn't mean that every symptom that we feel tells us exactly what to do. And it's not like we have to cave to every symptom that we have. It means that our feelings need to be heated sometimes, that we need to listen and we need to pay attention. It doesn't mean that our feelings become the truth, because sometimes our feelings actually do lie to us. But it means that when we pay attention and we kind of work our way through processing what we're feeling and the relationship that is going on between what's reality and what we're feeling about it, that's beautiful information that can help us to grow and to make those course corrections and to come back into alignment. And so I love the word curiosity. I love the word notice, right? Stay curious and notice, pay attention, bring curiosity into the situations that we face every day and seek wisdom. Isn't that like what Solomon, God said you can have anything, and he asked for wisdom. He could have asked God for literally anything, but wisdom was what he valued above everything else. And so maybe it's asking, is this a physical thing that I'm feeling? Is this an emotional issue? Is this a spiritual issue? Because sometimes, we wrestle not against flesh and blood. There are definitely times when it's um, a spiritual attack, or it's a spiritual misalignment, or things are out of whack in our spirit and things just aren't settled in our spirit. It could be relationships with ourselves, with other people. And so we need to pay attention and stay curious. Sometimes it's more than one. Like sometimes it can be, you know, physical and emotional with a little sprinkle of spiritual on top too. And so we just have to be um, use discernment and pay attention to what it is and kind of process through it. God created us as integrated beings. We are spirit, soul, and body. We cannot separate those parts of us. I use the illustration of an egg all the time. An egg is not just the shell, it's not just the yolk, and it's not just the white, right? It's all three of those things. And if I crack the egg and I put it into the bowl and I whisk it up, with a whisk and I stir it all together, boy, it would be really hard to pull out just the yolk, or you pull out part of a shell and the gooey white albumin and yolk is stuck to it. All these things, they overlap all the time, and we cannot think that we can live our life in a silo where it's only a physical thing, only an emotional thing, or a mental thing, because that's our soul, our mind, will, and emotions, and only a spiritual thing. They often overlap and they influence one another continuously all the time. And that's the way it was meant to be. Healing often begins when we stop trying to separate those things out, and when we realize that they often overlap, and we start to nurture and care for each of those different areas as an integrated plan in an integrated way, rather than trying to keep them all siloed and in their own lane. So think about this. How about if we would have a situation where every Sunday morning when it's time to go to church, we get a headache? And it happens more times than not. That would be something that we would need to recognize. There's a pattern. I'm getting a headache. It's a physical symptom. I'm probably getting grumpy because I don't feel well, and it's interfering with my ability to enter in to worship on a Sunday morning. How about this? How about every time I'm in conflict, my shoulders tense up and my neck gets tense? How about we feel exhausted when we have certain interactions with certain relationships? What if we were to recognize that we get a racing heartbeat every time we feel like we've just said yes when we should have said no, where we overcommitted ourselves? What if it's the opposite? What if it's we crave quiet after constant noise? That's not a problem, but it's something that we can often ignore. What if it's we feel lighter after setting a healthy boundary? Wow, that would be amazing, right? What if it's we sleep better after we make a difficult decision and we give ourselves a little pat on the back and say, "Good girl, man, you go. God got you, sister. You go." And how about we feel calmer after we spend time with our Bible and our journal and in prayer? All those different ways, positive, negative, good, bad. I hate to use the word good and bad, but positive and negative. All those things, all those ways that our body is speaking to us, that can be related to physical symptoms, emotional things, maybe even mental things. Our body is always talking to us. We need to start paying attention, because what if we started paying attention to the fact that I feel calmer after I spend time with the Lord in prayer and in devotions? Don't you think that if I recognize that, that then I might do the things that I need to do to make that more of a priority in my life? Just saying. So I think that what we need to do is recognize that our body is not trying to be the bad guy, and it's not trying to ruin our plans. It's not trying to rain on our parade, right? It is trying to do what it was created and designed to do. It was created to protect us, to give us information, to help right what's wrong. Blood sugar goes up, insulin comes out, it lowers it. It's always trying to protect us and to keep us in a state of well-being and homeostasis. It's that fancy medical word that means there's this system that's just meant to keep everything in balance and, at peace and at ease and in a state of healing and rest. So our body is not the enemy. It is absolutely not something that should be ignored either. And there are some people who fall into this camp. Our body is not something that we should worship either, right? It's not, we care for our physical body more than we care for our mental and emotional health and our spiritual health. The Bible says that our body is the temple of the living God and that we should care for it. And that doesn't mean that we love our body more than we love anything else. It is a gift. We are meant to steward it. Stewardship is one of my favorite words right now. And so it's learning to listen that becomes a part of how we live in wisdom and live wisely in this earth suit that we're given. So I want to just challenge you to start thinking, do this little journal exercise in your mind, or take out your journal and write these things down. How about consider this? What signals has my body been giving me lately? Which ones have I been ignoring? There might be more than one. What situations leave me feeling tense and stressed out, depleted, zapped of all energy? And what situations leave me feeling peaceful and blissful? What happens in my body when I am in a state of alignment? Have I noticed that? What happens in my body when I have not, when I've just ignored it and I'm not living in alignment? What goes on then? And then where might God be asking me to pay close attention? Where might we be receiving that still small voice or that little nudge? Maybe that this podcast is your little nudge to pay closer attention to the signals and the things that your body is trying to communicate with you. If these conversations have been helping you and they have allowed you to notice where things might be out of alignment in your life, then I would love to invite you to take the alignment check. It's a simple reflection tool and it's designed to help you become more aware of the patterns in your life. It's meant to challenge you to be curious, and it's not meant as a judgment. You'll find the link below. I would just love for you to take this away with you. Take this thought. Your body is been with you through every season of your life so far, and it will be with you until you leave this earth. It has carried joy. It has carried grief. It's carried stress. It's carried healing. It's carried hope. And maybe it's even carried fear. And maybe this week, instead of trying to silence every signal, maybe this week you simply become curious. What if you just listened, noticed? What if you just prayed? Because sometimes our body whispers what our soul has been trying to say all along. I'll see you next week as we continue this conversation on living from a place of deeper alignment.